Hello again, everybody. Josh Friedman here from Chicago, and we continue to roll on with Sports Tech Nation. Oren leading an incredible discussion on investments, and I'm ready to kind of come up with my billion-dollar idea to get to a SPAC as soon as I can with the way the future seems to be trending in that segment. We've heard something throughout the day, though, that's become a common theme in these panels, and that's the fan experience and how sports tech companies, of course, are trying to best optimize that relationship. And our next panel is going to discuss how the past 18 months and the pandemic have forced various companies to change the way that they engage with fans.
So welcome to the panel, Enriching and Monetizing the Remote Fan Experience. We've got a great lineup for you over the next 25 or 30 minutes or so. I'm going to introduce them very shortly. First of all, just by way of an introduction to the topic, we can't get away from the pandemic, unfortunately. It's only reinforced the importance of live sport as a means to bring fans together. It has also become synonymous with innovation, as we all have seen over the last year or so. And many of us have had to adapt to restrictions, including venues without fans. But in the next section, we would like to explore with this panel some of the challenges and opportunities that have arisen in respect of enriching the remote fan experience, as well as the search for new revenue models for sports rights owners. So I'm going to welcome Natalia Higuera, Head of Marketing and Communications at Scenic. Hi, Natalia.
Hi, thank you very much for having me and for inviting Scenic to be part of this.
Very welcome. Guy Pettiser, he's the VP of Sales at Mixzone. You're also welcome. Hi, Guy.
Hi, everyone. Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
And last but not least, Simon Perriman. He's the CEO and founder at FanWide. Hi, Simon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Hi again. So I'm going to turn to Simon first, and we talked about the impact of the pandemic, and in this panel we are really focusing in on the remote fan experience. And FanWide is a really interesting proposition in that respect. But Simon, I understand COVID wasn't necessarily kind, or at least presented some very significant challenges to your business.
Absolutely. So a little bit about FanWide first, right? We are one of the main players out there of bringing fans together in person for what we call watch parties. Bringing fans at bars, watching their favorite team wherever they live or travel. And so that was fundamentally our business. We promoted millions of events around the US and starting to expand worldwide. We had partnerships with some of the largest sports groups out there, like La Liga as their official bar partner, and worked with thousands of bars throughout the US, bringing them traffic, providing them with marketing tools, automation, and collecting data from these in-person events that otherwise didn't exist. And so suddenly when the pandemic hit, we kind of lost a lot of that, right? There was no sports, no bars, no in-person events. And so when you kind of lose those three main touch points, definitely makes you have to pivot the business a little bit.
No sport, no bars, no in-person events. Yeah, that's a mathematical equation that equals a very, very tough time. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you tackled those issues?
Absolutely. So fortunately, we kind of saw it coming. Our head of sales, he's somewhat of a conspiracy theorist. And so back in November, he started to tell us, hey, there's this new virus that's coming out. Like, this could be really bad for our business. And so fortunately, we had a couple of months kind of lead time before things shut down completely, where we started to kind of look at the trends, right? Seeing that, places in Asia were starting to shut down, and that, that was kind of trending across the world. And so fundamentally, what we had to do was look at what are some of our biggest strengths. We have a network with millions of people. We have access to, thousands of restaurants and bars. We have a strong technical team. I'm a technical founder, so are many of my co-founders. And then we have great relationships throughout the sports industry. And so a couple of different activities that we pivoted to. First, we started doing virtual watch parties. We would still allow fans to connect and engage in each other with virtual platforms. In fact, we partnered with Scenic to run some of these virtual events. The second thing we did was actually provide virtual cooking shows. So we actually worked with the bars and restaurants who are our partners, and kind of collaborated with their chefs so that people could still kind of do an interactive experience at home using virtual platforms again. But again, that's kind of tapping into the hospitality side of our business. And then the third area we kind of looked at was how do we get bars and even stadiums to reopen? And so we white labeled the technology for a company that I'm an advisor to, Vivid Solutions. And they basically did artificial intelligent cameras for smart cities. So they would take a regular camera system and they would look at people, places, and actions and see, is there, a fight? Is there overcrowding? Does a garbage can need to be refilled? And so we kind of retrofitted that technology for bars and for stadiums, and worked on built about 30 different AI analytics to look at overcrowding, to look at social distancing, to detect whether people were wearing face masks, stadium ingress, stadium egress, and ultimately developed a business around that, taking a new technology, or it's kind of an existing technology, although state of the art, and applying it to a new problem space, COVID, and getting stadiums to quickly reopen.
Great example of innovation, Simon. Thanks. You mentioned Scenic, and that's a nice cue for me to bring Natalia into the conversation. Natalia, you're tackling the remote fan experience from a slightly different angle to Simon's core proposition, at least, which is focused on bars. Maybe you can explain a little bit the problems that you've focused on at Scenic and how you're solving those problems.
Yeah. So we are Scenic, a software company, and we provide white label services to telcos, media companies, and broadcasters. And we created the Watch Together technology in 2013. The reason behind that was that our founders were all living away from their homelands, and the need of connecting with their loved ones, with their families, their friends, while watching a football match, any kind of a sport, a concert, was something that you couldn't do. It wasn't existing. So we created that technology thinking of we need to be able to be with the people we love or the people that we normally gather around with, regardless of where we physically are. And so that's how Scenic started. We started working with many companies and we were slowly getting that idea into the public. And then the pandemic happened, and that meant that we couldn't even meet our neighbor. So it became not only for those who are away from home or are not able to go to a public place, but for everyone in the world, making the Watch Together experience a prime time need for everyone that has an OTT platform, a streaming platform, and for people like FanWide that needed to gather people around and still enjoying that part of life that it's so important. We are social people and we need to be there. So that has always been the vision of Scenic. And with pandemic or without, we know that there is a gap in the market where users were not able to do that. And now with the pandemic, as it did with everything in the world, it just accelerated many things that were developing more slowly. And now it's across many platforms and many people are doing it in different ways. Our way is over a video call.
Great, great example of a product which has, as you said, accelerated partly because of the pandemic. I'm going to turn to Guy now, Guy from Mixzone. Guy, I'd like to kind of switch a little bit the gears to monetization. Maybe you can also explain a little bit the context of your proposition, but you're working largely with clubs who, throughout the pandemic, there's been a lot of publicity around how they in particular, at least at the top end, have or the mid tiers have also struggled to find sources of revenue when fans were, for large parts, not allowed to be in the venues. Maybe you could talk around a little bit some of those monetization challenges that you've pinpointed and how your solution addresses some of those challenges.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, Mixzone, what we are doing is digital backdrops. We have the first digital backdrop for interviews, post-game interviews, press conferences, and mid-half interviews. Basically, the COVID helps us in a way because the clubs saw that they have lack of revenues from sponsorship, basically. What we saw is that changes that happened with the LED signs alongside the field. We want to do the same with backdrop, with the interview backdrop. We assume that the interview is the best place for advertisers, for sponsors to deliver a message, and to clubs to engage with the fans. It's a very profitable area, profitable real estate. And as we saw with the LEDs alongside the field, it started with cartons, only one sponsor in each carton. Now you can see that because of digitalization, the ad inventory of each club, you can have up to 20 advertisers at the same place. So we understand that the interview will get bigger part on the live games and after, and it's become an integral part of the game itself. Often it's get the same amount of airtime on sports shows and later on internet. But despite all of that, the backdrop stayed the same, static, and basically clubs cannot generate any additional value in terms of money and in delivering a message. So we created our backdrop, the digital backdrop, where you can have up to 10 or 12 different sponsors also for that place. It will help provide value to clubs to engage with fans. Basically, we are offering a holistic solution. We're coming with the hardware and the software. Our software is very easy to assemble. You can upload your ad, like uploading a picture to Instagram. So if you want to have a sponsor, for the press conference before the game, you can sign one sponsor for that and a different sponsor for the late interview on the flash area after the game. So the clubs have the chance not only to sign one big sponsor like Nike or Adidas, but they can get 10 different small sponsors and still provide them with a very aesthetic, eye-catching area and a prestige area, basically, which is the interview. So basically, that's it.
So it's a very common problem, I guess, and it's one of the best examples of a simple solution working best, right? It's very applicable to many clubs out there. Simon, I want to stay on the topic of monetization. And incidentally, for anyone who wants to forget about the pandemic, I must apologize. It's running through all of the entire conversation we're going to have, or at least it has in the introduction. I wanted to stay on the monetization topic, Simon, because obviously your core proposition is focused on bars and really bringing people together for a physical experience. I'm wondering the challenges that you have faced developing the business in terms of going from that and bringing those communities together, but then engaging them and helping your customers to monetize those communities as they come together.
Yeah, we certainly had to do a lot of shifts. And monetization, didn't just impact the sports industry, right? Obviously, the hospitality industry was pretty devastated by it. What we found is our main revenue source prior to the pandemic was actually from the sports bars. They paid either a one-time fee or a monthly subscription fee to be part of the network, and we would drive traffic to them. Now, with that industry kind of being impacted where they couldn't have people inside the bar, right? They were losing revenue from that, but they also had challenges like, the food and beverage where they might close and then have to reopen, and they would have a lot of wasted food. As it turns out, at least in the US, even the TV cable subscription packages, that's one of the most expensive costs to a bar as well. A lot of people, they might pay, I don't know, $100 a month for a cable subscription at home, but that's for a residential subscription. As it turns out, bars and restaurants are often paying several $1,000s every month because it's based on their capacity. And so another problem we found was, this was one of the first expenses that bars would cut, right? We don't have people, there's no sports, let's at least get rid of our TV cable package, right? And so even when we started to have kind of, spikes in subsequent openings and things would reopen, things would close down, it was still tough really driving people there during that time because, food and drink was limited. There were staffing shortages, and a lot of them just didn't even have cable TV anymore, even if they were a sports bar. So with that industry, what we really try to do is look, how can we help them make more revenue? They were kind of our first customers. We primarily work with independent bars. About 70-80% of our customers were independent bars, the rest being some of the larger chains. And the larger chains, they weren't struggling as much. They had economies of scale, they had, kind of other revenue sources. But the independents, these are small business owners. They're looking, what do I do? How can I, I still have to pay my rent, right? My physical building's still there, and I'm not making any money. And so the main thing that we worked for them was, taking advantage of technologies like Scenic, was actually creating kind of these like watch together or interactive learning experiences when it came to cooking. And so we'd work with some of them on a program where they would actually have their chefs kind of pre-prepare a meal. We would then advertise it to our network, like, hey, this is your favorite sports bar. Let's try to help the local economy, or let's help the local sports bar. Kind of some messaging like, we want them to stay in business, right? So that when this pandemic's over, they're still there. And so we basically pre-package meals. People would then come pick it up, by drive-by, take it home, and they would do kind of like an interactive cooking session with the chef. So it was kind of like another experience as well, because another trend that I'm sure a lot of people saw, right, is once you can no longer go out, people are always looking for different activities to do at home, right? Hobbies just spiked during the pandemic because people were always trying to learn new skills. And so we were trying to kind of meet that demand as well by offering people new ways to learn how to cook, right, where the whole family could come together. You could prep a meal. It was interactive. You could do a live Q&A with the chef. And so we found that was, a nice way to help generate revenue for them, but also, kind of help keep the lights on for us. So that's kind of where we focused on for monetization when it came to the restaurants. Now for the sports teams, how we kind of help them, right? As Guy mentioned earlier, they were losing a lot of revenue from, lack of ticket sales, right? This is pretty devastating. Some of the larger teams and clubs that have large TV contracts, they weren't impacted as much, but, we work with sports from all different scales, amateur, semi-professional, tier 3, right, colleges. And so they were looking for new revenue sources as well, right? And so what we ended up doing was using this Scenic platform, creating these virtual watch parties because we already had the fans. And this was, as it turned out, another branding and another sponsorship opportunity. So we would have ways to go and insert ads, before this watch party is presented by this alcohol brand, trying to tie together their existing sponsorships, because as it turned out in the sponsorship world, if you lose advertising space because people can't go to games, oftentimes the club actually has to make that up. They have to do what's called a make good, right? Where they have this lost advertising revenue. And so they have to find new ways to kind of make it up to that sponsor. And so we became another monetization and another sponsorship platform that they could tie into. So we had, different brands appear. So as you could kind of see, like most people are more familiar with a Zoom meeting, but, if you can imagine different spots in the meeting, have different brands, different logos. We would run trivia contests that were sponsored by different brands. People could win contests, and we did a raffle or contest with a tequila company. We would ship them tequila if they were the winner. So looking at just different ways where, even though we can't be together in person and you can't pour that beer and drink that beer in real time, still trying to engage those kind of same interactions, same sponsorships, and keep people and the brands, having that synergy. So that's ultimately where we kind of went to there. And I mean, I don't know, from seeing Natalia, from your perspective, like, did you see branding and advertising like start to kind of come to your platform a little more once you started to see this migration?
Yeah, well, when we started working with FanWide, we created, and that was at the first month of the pandemic, we created a platform, but we are actually not a platform. We provide services to people that already have their platforms, but we did this because when the pandemic happened, everybody was like, what do we do, right? And we had the technology, we could create the platforms to bring everybody together and help companies like FanWide to bring their fans and build those communities while everybody kind of settled in these new ways and the new normals of the pandemic, because I think it's not over yet. So what we have seen from our perspective is, obviously, we were not waiting for a pandemic, but we were waiting for the market to invest more in innovation and in technology. And I think one of the key facts that played during this is that no one was really putting the effort. So everybody is creating their own OTT platforms, their own streaming platforms, and all of that, but no one was looking after the fan. is not only about having a platform, it's like how do we engage the fan? And we hear a lot about like fan engagement, and that's very broad. For us, is like how do you make this user to go to your platform and stay with you? And yes, there are thousands of platforms, but we all have like a favorite one, and some prefer to go to Disney Plus or Netflix or Amazon. It depends on the content. It comes to sports, it depends on the broadcaster, what they show, who is speaking, who is like along with the game. So there are key factors that people like BT is completely different than clients that we also have like La Liga, and we have like PCCW in Hong Kong. So everybody has something to offer, but they were not really focusing on how to engage those fans when they cannot go to the stadium. And I think as an industry, we forgot that not everybody goes to the stadium, and that has always been a fact. Not everybody can make it to the bar, not everybody can make it to the stadium. And there was a huge gap and a lot of revenue that was being wasted there. Like Guy with his company also saw, like there is a lot of potential that we can do. But I think as an industry and as the world, we were still waiting for the technology to suddenly happen. And it was us, the ones that needed to make that decision. And let's just say, go. When you speak about it and when you see the experience, it seems to be like very easy, but it's not, because we have to make sure that you are listening to each other while you video chat with your friends, so that we, the four of us, can listen to each other talk over the audio of the streaming, that the streaming is synchronized between all of us, because it's not the same if everyone watches the goal in different time. So there is a lot of things that we need to make sure. So we were working with BT on that, and then the pandemic happened and they just made the call, we need to do this now. We need to make sure that fans are able to watch the matches as soon as the Premier League was able to come back to the stadiums and have closed door matches. So yeah.
And to kind of like touch on that point, right? That was one of our biggest requirements too. You know, you'd have like 10, 20, 50 people all in a room. Having that synchronicity of scoring and events happening was just so critical to that fan experience, right? You know, you don't want several people going, you know, goal or touchdown, like, you know, 15 seconds before everyone else sees it. That kind of ruins that fan experience. So what Scenic ended up kind of putting together, and with that synchronization, was a pretty novel and great technology that is definitely critical for us.
Yeah, and that also has a huge factor, and it's devices and networks. Everybody is on a different network. Some are like on 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi. Some have Androids, iPhones. The other one is on their tablets. The other one is on their TV. So we have to work around many different devices. So when we speak about like watch parties, watch together, it seems really easy, but behind it, there is a lot of work that we have been doing since 2013. And we have also seen how other platforms have embraced this idea of gathering their fans around, but in different ways. You have people doing it through emojis or chats. But for us, is the fact that if you see the person, if we're having a conversation one-to-one, the experience is completely different. And especially for sport fans, it's about that. It's about the community and being there together in any way. And then for our clients, bringing the fans, having them watching their content, but also creating those possibilities of, okay, how do we monetize that? So one of the ways that we help our clients is that if I invite you to watch a match with the platform that I like, you are more likely to become a user. And then if we invite more friends, then this is a new word of mouth marketing. And then on top of that, you have people like Guy showcasing like different brands, different sponsors, and we are now watching that. And that will still happen regardless of being on a pandemic or not, because it's a social behavior. And it's also, again, it's not, it has always been there. Not everybody's able to go to the stadium. We cannot always make it. Sometimes we are sick, sometimes we need to look after something, we need to be at home, and we need to be able, or we want to be able to join the rest of the 50 friends and be there and enjoy it with them too.
Let me bring Guy back in. Interesting you mentioned, Natalia, the speedy evolution of technology, and actually I'm interested to know, Guy, from your perspective, because you're in a very specific area of the sports of tech space. what sort of role will emerging technologies play in your sort of sector in terms of the digital advertising space? How do you anticipate that changing how you deliver your product to your customers?
Yeah, but I will take it what Natalia said and mentioned. Basically, you look at Champions League night. You have 5 different games. They just starting at the same time, so you cannot watch everyone. Later on, you're going to sleep. You open your Instagram, you open your Facebook. You start to see replays and interviews. And we understood that, like in Israel, we can see it. We study it here, but sometimes live games have less viewers than later on websites, on repetition through Instagram, TikTok, even, and other social media. So what we are bringing the added value for sponsors and club to have some kind of opportunity message, because later you will see the interview with Messi today on live, but million of people will see it during this week. So the message that run through our backdrops while Messi is being interviewed will continues for a week, even a month later, because repetition, because the likes, the shares and comments. So we are very concentrated about that, because it will generate revenue for the sponsor. He will get better deal. I mean, you will get better place, and the clubs can even have some kind of a message through to fans. With the next step that we are having in a few, it's Q&A questions with the interviewer, so fans can bid or can win the lottery, some kind of a lottery, and ask question, and it will be like the gold questions to the interviewer. And in this way, we are making the interview a very prestigious space.
Very good. Creating another asset. I love it. Simon, I think we're going to close the panel in 2 minutes, but quick final word from yourself and Natalia, maybe on a similar track of emerging tech, how it might influence your business as it moves forward.
I mean, I think being in the sports tech space and industry, right, there's just so many opportunities out there. Anytime there's been a paradigm shift in how the world operates, a pandemic, right, like different techs change. Not only have we seen a massive shift in like medical technology over the past 2 years, right, but just also in communications as people have needed to do that. And so, I think for any tech company to do well and to continue to grow, it's about embracing the latest and greatest. We adopted artificial intelligence into an existing video platform. These are existing video cameras that have been installed in stadiums for decades, but we kind of put a layer of software on top of it and solved new problems: social distancing, face mask compliance. And then we're able to kind of extend that to looking at detecting if people are fighting, if people are intoxicated, if there's a lost child, a suspicious bag, all these other scenarios, which really help enable stadium operations. And as we're seeing the price of labor increase, fewer fans allowed in the stadium, there was really an inflection point of these stadiums needed more resources, yet having less money. And so we try to use technology to help cover that gap for them. And that's been fairly successful for us.
Great. Natalia, any final comments on that?
Yeah, I think embracing technology and the ideas that are out there, but also going back to basics in human behavior. And for us, it's all about community. Humans like socializing, and platforms cannot forget about that aspect. That's key, and we need to go back to what the user wants. And it's really basic. And sometimes when we speak about innovation and technology, people go to like, let's create these amazing worlds, and VR comes around and all of this, but that is not the basic. Like, we don't have VR gadgets everywhere in their homes, but we all have cell phones, we all have cameras. So creating this around like those basics will enable us to develop like even greater, which is going to happen with 5G. It's already happening, like all the things that we can now do. But also, for example, creator experiences like Guy just mentioned. We did an amazing one with NPO. They are the public broadcaster of the Netherlands.
Yeah,
and during the Tour de France, people in the Netherlands were watching on their platform. That's the biggest platform, MPO Start. And we invited a former cyclist to join them. So he was like virtually knocking the room. So we will get like a message, hey, Michael wants to join you. And people will see Michael Boomer, this amazing cyclist, and he will comment on what was happening, take a selfie, a screenshot, and speak to fans. And that's really basic, but it's something that no one was doing. No one is like connecting us to like our main artists. Like, we are fans of these many sport people. We want to ask so many questions. We want to be closer, and we don't even have to be there. We can do it like online, and it's easier for everyone as well. And it's helping us as well with like the production, and a lot of things are happening. I think when we speak, my remark will be like, when we speak about innovation and technology, we don't have to create these crazy worlds. I think we just have to use the tools that we have to create those environments that we are normally at in a different place, which in this case is the online one.
I think that was a great way to finish, Natalia, on a panel in a tech conference. To boil it down to human behavior, I think, is a really important point that we shouldn't overstate and get allowed to get lost. I think that human aspect is always important in how we frame the technological discussions that we're having today and in the future, I'm sure. It's been a pleasure, Simon, Natalia, and Guy. I hope you have enjoyed the panel, and I think we're gonna close it there. So thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone.